Hello, and thank you for being one of the 10 people to download this podcast.
You can now download this podcast on almost all podcast apps, which includes iTunes, Spotify, and Podbean. You can listen to it on YouTube, and you can also get in contact with us at Layman Experts on Twitter.
Hello, and welcome to the Layman Experts. You're joined by me, Payam Tagizada, and as always, Alistair Yeoman.
Payam, it's great to see you again. How are you doing?
Doing very well, thank you. It's been about a couple of weeks since I last saw you.
It has. We've been busy. We've had other things going on, but we're glad we're going to sort of start kicking on now with these episodes and pumping them out a little bit more often, right?
We have. We've done the first two of the season. It's gone pretty well.
Yeah.
Good review so far.
Yeah.
You know, a bit of chat, you know, in the workplace.
And we've learned a bit as well, right? We've learned about some topics we didn't know about before, and that's the whole point of this, right? We have these chats and it encourages us to, become more knowledgeable about the things that are going on around us.
Exactly, and today is quite a special episode, I feel, for two reasons.
Right.
Reason one is we're in the first episode, it's the first episode in the season, which I wanted to do.
Okay.
And secondly...
So the pressure's on you today then?
Pressure's on me.
You need to deliver.
Well, you know, and...
They call you the postman, don't they? You always deliver.
He knows, wait, banter. And reason two, we have a special guest.
Yes, the first one of our podcast lives, actually.
It is.
The first one.
Who
is he? You dragged him along, didn't you? You got him from somewhere. Where'd
Yes.
you get him from?
Well, he's somebody I knew from university.
Right.
Always a very sharp boy. Very smart.
University of Manchester.
University of Manchester.
You know, red brick
team.
Clever guy.
Very clever guy. He's a senior manager at Merkel Periscopics for paid search.
Okay.
And he's risen the
And
ranks.
what do Merkel Periscopics do as a company?
I think on the whole company,
yeah.
they've the digital marketing generally.
Okay, fine.
And he focuses on the paid search part of it.
Okay.
So like PPC marketing. He's risen through the ranks. He's been promoted. So I lived with him last year as well. And he was just constantly getting promoted. So he knows his stuff. I thought, what a great person to bring for a first episode.
Yeah.
Somebody who knows the industry well, can give us in-depth knowledge.
He's what you'd call a digital marketing talent. A star for the now and for the future.
He's going to listen to this and love this. He's going to love this.
This is all off the cusp as well. He hasn't told us to say any of this stuff.
So I thought it was really interesting to get someone like that along, because I had my own preconceptions of this topic. And it was important to get, for once, a real expert to have some input into our layman opinions.
Yeah, I think, with this question...
have we asked the question?
Have we asked it yet? So the question is, how is technology changing buyer behaviour? So, I mean, in this day and age, obviously, buyer behaviour through the internet is something we've all engaged with and we all, see on a daily basis. So we've all probably got an opinion, but none of us have got, or very few of us have got a professional opinion. So it's good to sort of, the preconceptions you have, to sort of maybe inform them better, or maybe that you confirm them, maybe. You don't know. But it's good to have someone in to sort of talk us through this sort of stuff, because obviously it's impossible to get away from in this day and age, that, that online marketing aspect to the world we live in. Exactly.
And so before we listen to the interview, did our own research or whatever we did, what were your initial thoughts?
So I actually worked in a marketing department. No, it wasn't. It was a information technology company.
Okay.
A few years ago, and I actually did a little bit of pay-per-click and a little bit of ads, sort of paid ads and paid searches. So I understand the sort of the basics, but that was 3 years ago, and genuinely I think one of the interesting things about this topic is that it's such an infant industry relative to other industries that year by year huge changes are occurring. An example is, recently the first sort of big regulation in terms of data protection, GDPR, came in 25th of May, and people have this impression of there being sort of people watching you, or this sort of horror side to it, and GDPR was the first regulation that sort of addressed that.
Yeah, and it was important because I always felt, and I think other people as well, the regulators, the government hasn't caught up quickly enough with the digital game.
Yeah.
And the EU, fair play, stepped up to the plate. In the company I'm working, I guess most people listen to this episode, company they work in as well, even school teachers, nurses, GDPR was a big thing. And we all have to wake up to how important it is to protect data, not just for ourselves, but our customers as well. As people that work, no matter what you do, your patients, your students, etc. And
it's actually crazy when that occurred. Then in the following fortnight, the amount of emails you get from these companies you've never heard of before saying, "Would you like to opt out?"
So,
yes, please.
I still remember opting in parts.
Yeah, exactly. Eye-opening.
Yeah, and so for me, it's not too different to you. Whenever I thought of this topic and how digital everything has become, even though I'm somebody's a bit of a pawn in the game, I've got myself an Amazon Echo. I'm on my phone quite a lot, and quite I like my techie stuff. Yeah. I'm always quite wary of how far it can go. But at the same time,
what do you mean, as in?
So I'll talk about it more maybe at the end of the episode, but
as in, you think you've got, as an individual, you think you have balance in terms of you're able to regulate how much you get sucked in by it. Is that what you mean?
Well, or in fact, I'm quite lazy, and so if something makes my life easier, I'll take it. Okay. So I'm on Google Chrome all the time. They have all my information. They know my banking stuff. They know how much money I've got. I'm sure.
And you're happy.
I'm ignorant.
Okay. You're knowledgeable about your ignorance.
Yes, because I feel like in this country I kind of trust what's going on.
Right. Okay.
I trust that the people above me will look after me for now. But I think we'll talk about more after we show the interview.
Yeah.
No. So guys, here's the interview with me. Unfortunately, Alistair couldn't make it. I think he was in Italy at the time.
I was in Italy.
Yeah, his interview, my first ever interview.
Wish I was in Britain doing the interview.
Done a better job than me.
Yeah.
And I hope you enjoy.
Yeah.
Hello Daniel, and welcome to the Layman Experts.
Hi Pam, thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming. I'm sure you know, listening to our podcast as a loyal listener, that we are the Layman Experts. We are laymen trying to be experts.
Indeed.
So we figured having you on, having a legitimate expert, might help our credibility a little bit.
Yeah, that's right. So they were looking for an expert and then couldn't find one, so call me up. Got the call up.
You're on the bench. You do well. Yeah, so obviously you're here to help to answer the question, how is technology changing behaviour? And before we get started, could you just introduce yourself a little bit and tell us why you are someone that's worth listening to, essentially?
Yeah, I can try. I work for a company called Merkel Periscopics. So best way to kind of describe them, they're a performance marketing agency. So companies would basically come to our agency, wanting people to manage their digital marketing, essentially. So what we do, we manage digital marketing across various channels, so paid social, programmatic. The department I specifically work in is paid search. So I've been doing that for 3 years. So essentially building paid search campaigns. So for anyone who doesn't know what paid search is, bidding on certain keywords, making sure that we're bidding accordingly based on people who are going to eventually go on to convert on site or any other metrics that our clients want to hit. Making sure that we're adjusting our bids, adjusting our keyword coverage for certain variables. So such as if certain times of day work better, if certain people convert better on mobile rather than tablet, then we need to make sure that we're following the data and going off the back of that. So yeah, quite a lot of creativity in the early stages, quite a lot of data crunching, a lot of meeting with clients and figuring out the best way to go about it. Then just a lot of kind of meeting with their clients, finding out what their goals are and just trying to make sure we're always following it.
Wonderful. And what's your role within the company?
So I'm a senior manager.
Ooh, good man. He was recently promoted, to be honest, so congratulations to you.
Yeah, thanks, mate. If anyone's seen my LinkedIn, then, bare promotion thing.
But yeah, you're right. He's doing a good job so far. And you're telling about the company that you work for. Could you, I know you've got some confidentiality you can't share, but is there any customers you have that you work for directly?
Yeah, so, it's all on the website, so not highly confidential.
Yeah.
I can't share their figures, but anything like that. Okay. But, so I work on Now TV account, Superdrug account. I've previously worked on clients such as Tesco, JP Morgan, so...
The big brands.
Yeah, they get one of the big ones, mate. And so quite a wide breadth of clients, which kind of gives you quite a good insight into the market from different kind of viewpoints. And
to give people, the listeners, just to make sure that they follow what paid search really is, you mentioned you bid on keywords, so for somebody like Tesco, what words would you bid on?
Yeah, so Tesco is kind of a funny one because they have a lot of different parts of their site.
Like mobile, supermarket.
Yeah, exactly. So Tesco Mobile, we might be bidding on stuff like SIM-only contracts, etc. And then Tesco have their grocery stuff as well. So I guess kind of a good viewpoint would be, okay, how generic do you go? If someone is searching tomatoes, are they really going to be the kind of customer who are eventually going to go and convert and do a big £60, £100 shop on Tesco groceries? Or are they just someone who's looking for recipes or someone who's looking for even just something like an image of a tomato or trying to find out something like that? But then again, if it's around Christmas time, for example, and people are searching stuff like best turkey at Christmas, or where to buy a turkey, or best online shop for Christmas shop, then that's the kind of stuff that we would probably want to be bidding on. So we essentially need to make sure that we're bidding on people who are as relevant as possible, but also we can't be cutting off volume, because if we're just going to go for those long tail searches, so best turkey at Christmas, or when can Tesco deliver my turkey, it's all well and good just doing that, but also then we're going to be cutting off a lot of volume. So we need to kind of find, it's like my whole job is just about finding that balance between volume and relevance, so trying to hit those kind of like ROI metrics for clients. So
exactly. I think that's where the technology comes in. To target the right demographics, and with the data where to look and how creepy maybe it gets. That's what I'm thinking in my head. I feel like I always feel this sort of data. It can be a little bit creepy. And obviously Cambridge Analytica is something that was big on the news. I know it's not directly something you work in. The tracking, I feel, and the cookies and all that data. It's kind of a similar aspect, I imagine. Yeah,
it's quite an interesting one. It's not like creepy is a word that often comes up, not just like with people who don't necessarily know that much about the vertical, but also like clients as well. Like they want to make sure that they don't seem creepy with any marketing that they do. And it's something that I guess we can go on to a bit more later. But that kind of thing is something, I guess for paid search it's not as much of a problem, because people are literally typing in what they want. So if Google's doing their job right, they're going to be seeing relevant results. But definitely for stuff like display and paid social, people can definitely find it creepy and intrusive at times. So it's definitely something that's kind of a buzzword.
Definitely, and we'll go into that a bit more detail. So what changes have you seen in the recent years, do you think?
Yeah, so I've pulled some stats for this.
He's done his research. I like this guy. Top guest.
So I thought I'd just kind of talk about, I guess, like marketing and advertising as a general, and just talking about like the way that the industry's going, because there's a lot of stats, even just looking at like the past 5 years, which are like absolutely mental to see. So a lot of this stuff was for the US, but I was looking at eMarketer report yesterday, and digital ad spend in 2016 for the first ever time exceeded TV. So digital ad spend was 72 billion. TV in 2016 was 71 billion. So
dollars, pounds,
dollars. Yeah.
USD thing. USD. We're on the USD too. Yeah, we're international podcast as well, so for American listeners.
Sorry, I forgot you had listeners worldwide. So when you consider the average American watches 5 hours of TV a day, when you think that digital is growing bigger than TV, like that's absolutely insane to even think about. It's a stunning shift from what it potentially used to be. TV advertising, particularly in America, is just so massive. You think about what you see like on the Super Bowl and stuff like that. It's like Coke have paid $25 million to have like a 60-second slot. So to think they're spending more on digital just shows the massive shift there. And I guess just looking at Google in particular, which is the massive crux of what I do. So there's 3.5 billion searches per day on Google. And one stat that we always hear at work is 80% of searches are unique. So never ever been searched before.
Oh, that is, that's crazy.
It's mind-boggling, and I've always been really sceptical about that stat, but Google come out with it a lot. So.
Can we trust Google?
I feel like I have to believe them on that one. But if you think about that, and then if you think about the implications for advertising, I mean, to think about everyone in a different way is something that's ultimately the end goal, but never going to be possible. So, like you were saying earlier, we do kind of have to use proxies. But if you look at Google's ad revenue, it was $70 million in 2001. In 2010, it was $28 billion, and now it's $95 billion, 2017. So even in the past 8 years, it's more than tripled, which is...
Goodness, that is insane.
Yeah, because you think back to 2010, and like everyone was using phones and laptops back then, like there wasn't even that much change. But if you think about, I mean, in terms of a market, like I can't really imagine anything that's growing that quickly.
The smartphones are still quite big in 2010. Like iPhone 3 must have been out by that point.
Yeah. I actually I was looking at smartphone use, and the most interesting stat that I found was US adults have gone from, on average in 2011, spending an average of 46 minutes on their phone to 258 minutes last year per day.
I mean, I'm thinking the trend. People now go on YouTube on their phones a lot. They watch Netflix on their phones even. I think a lot of people do. So I have a colleague, he's writing a novel. He writes his novel on his phone on the way to work.
Pretty long.
It sounds like he's like, it's interesting the things that people do on their phone now. It's becoming more and more, isn't it?
Yeah, you just get a carpal tunnel writing a novel on your phone. But that's absolutely mad. And one other thing I was going to talk about was like the difference between that and the out-of-home advertising market, so stuff like billboards, etc. I guess post, which used to be like, although it seems ridiculous now that people used to do so much post marketing, it was happening in spades like 20 years ago. And the out-of-home advertising market is growing at 1.5% per year, and digital is growing at 20% per year. And advertising agencies like mine are growing at about 40% per year, which when you think about it, like 100 people to 140 people in 1 year is
It's
absolutely
huge. It's massive.
And like if that just carries on, and even if it slows down a little bit, then you're just looking at a ridiculously big market. But yeah, another thing that I kind of wanted to bring up in this bit was just talking about how people have like lost their attention span. So 76% of people in the UK own a smartphone. 25% of those don't even make traditional voice calls on their smartphone. So that just shows that they're using it for other means like social media, like you were saying, YouTube, etc., etc. But that, I mean, it would have been absolutely ridiculous to think that people would have a phone and not use it as a phone like 10 years ago.
I mean, yourself, how often do you make a phone call? I don't think I have any phone calls actually. Now I'm thinking of it.
Yeah, no, I feel like sometimes I look at my call app on my iPhone, and it's like a few calls in the past week or something.
Not very often, is it?
Maybe I've just not got many friends. But
so the phone is no longer being something just a recording device. It's basically our mobile, our computer, is everything now, isn't it?
So the big thing that's changed on mobile is, like I was saying, people have lost attention span. So if a page doesn't load within 3 seconds, 50% of people are gonna bounce off it.
Yeah.
So like won't even give you 3 seconds. And I was reading something. So online retailer Nordstrom. So their page load speed slowed by half a second, and they lost 11% of revenue, which accounted for like tens of millions of dollars. So like even stuff like that is just like has such a profound effect for marketing, and it's almost like we can only do so much, but then if you're losing these load speeds, if anything is wrong with the site, then it just has massive implications for retailers and anyone.
They're relying on good internet connection that people have, and like where they are on the data, and how much data, 4G, 3G, if they're like got 2G, they live in the sticks. What can you do about that? It's not your fault.
Exactly. But yeah, people talk a lot about cost of marketing going up as well recently. But in my eyes, I guess that's not really true, because there's so many different mediums now. I mean, like we've only spoken about Google, and all those stats are like whatever, nearly 100 billion in revenue last year. Not even spoken about YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all sorts of huge players in the market. But one thing that's doing for advertisers and for us is it's giving them a lot more platforms. And theoretically, if you're using those platforms correctly, you can be getting much cheaper advertising views than you could possibly be doing with billboards or post. And also you can make it a lot more relevant too. So theoretically, you could be paying like £10 per click on Google for people who are searching exactly what... Sorry, 10p per click, I should say.
Yeah, £10 quite a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. So for people who are searching on for stuff that's hyper relevant to your brand.
So then, does this help smaller businesses compete? Would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. So one kind of thing, I don't want to get too technical, but one thing about how Google's ad rank works is you can bid, but there's also another element to how far high up you appear in the auction. So that's essentially to stop people like Adidas for trainers like absolutely dominating the market, because Adidas can obviously pay way more than even like Foot Locker or the local shoe shop. Yeah, but there's something called quality score. So the more relevant your ad and landing page you're sending people are to the search term, that also plays a role. So you kind of times that by someone's bid, and then that generates ad rank. So it does.
There's a lot of factors at the side.
Yeah, exactly. But it does help smaller businesses for sure.
Wicked. And then moving on to the next question, what kind of things do companies use to influence buyer behaviour?
Yeah. So this is kind of an interesting one, and I guess there's some stuff that you can always think about. Like you even think about when you're going into a local Tesco. Like we just went on a nice trip to Morrison's ourselves.
We did.
Yeah, on a nice baller trip to Morrison's.
Classy.
And even there, like there's been so many studies over the years about, okay, where should you put stuff in the supermarket to encourage people to buy more openly? I mean, you always see it even in the most like standard terms, like next to like the takeaway curries, you see beer, and like you kind of think like, oh, that's kind of cute. But it is like, that's all based on data and science, and like people are doing that kind of stuff to literally make us buy. But I thought it'd be best here, being as it's what I actually do, to talk about some of the cool stuff that we do at work, and then go on to kind of machine learning. So in terms of some cool stuff that we kind of do to influence buyer behaviour, so one thing that we've done on like a big retailer account is...
Can you share the company?
No.
Okay. We'll call a company MI5.
So it's a big online retailer basically, and what they do. So there's a lot of customer profiling that goes on in these big companies. I'm sure you've probably like seen it in clients and stuff like that. But they have like essentially 5 major customer profiles. So for example, some of these might be, okay, these people resonate really highly with celebrities, or these people tend to have a higher average income. And we can feed that data back into AdWords because it's their first party data. We're allowed to use it. And for the most generic searches, we can show people a different product based on the CRM segment that they fall in. So if someone is searching Oral-B toothbrush, Oral-B have a massive range of toothbrushes, and essentially someone might be a premium customer and you might be showing them £19 toothbrushes, you're going to be losing a lot of potential value there. Similarly, someone might have very low average income and you might be showing them a premium toothbrush, and then you're going to be losing that customer as well. So what being able to plug back in this CRM data has allowed us to do is, for those super generic searches when people aren't specifying in their search term if they're looking for a premium toothbrush or a cheap toothbrush, it's allowed us to assume that, and then we can show them certain products that we think are going to resonate more highly with them. So if someone is searching Oral-B toothbrush and we know that they have a lower average income, they're not going to be buying a premium one.
How do you know this information?
It's first party data. So they essentially do a lot of consumer profiling, and everyone who has a loyalty card for these big brands, they have a bunch of different data points on them that mostly people just give them themselves, but also based on their buying behaviour in store, because that's all tracked. So they lump people into one of these 5 different segments. It's obviously not always going to be perfect, but it's one step further than we've ever been able to do before. Similarly, like being able to use third-party data points has allowed us to do quite a lot of interesting stuff. So quite a cool one that we did, I think it's a case study on our website, so I'll just say it. So it was for Bailey's around Christmas, and on particularly cold days, we were able to change the ad that we're showing automatically. And if it was raining outside, you'd be able to show an ad like get inside out of the wet.
Cozy.
Yeah, exactly. So stuff like that is super cool. And then, so I guess that's kind of like a more general thing, like agile marketing. So being able to change this stuff based on factors that you can never predict, not needing to be in there and literally switching over the ads. It just does it automatically.
Automatic algorithm that knows. It doesn't know if it goes below a certain temperature.
It runs off the Met Office API. So we just link it to a script that then plugs into AdWords. And yeah, similarly, we've been able to do a lot of cool stuff in terms of our ad copy. So for Now TV, our kind of eventual plan is for when someone is searching watch Liverpool Man United live, we're going to be able to pull in the score directly. Say, oh, Liverpool just scored, can Man United pull it back, for example. Pull in stuff like last year's winner, like can Liverpool do the double? Just all stuff that's making ads just that little bit more personalised. Similarly, like we had a big finance client, and every time someone searched like Apple stock price, we could pull in the stock price from, it would be like 15 minutes up to date. So even stuff like that, like we're encouraging people to go on site. Those ads are getting way more personalised than they would ever be. So being able to use technology is something that's a massive help for us. And yeah, I guess one big thing to talk about is machine learning as well. Have you ever seen the Netflix documentary AlphaGo?
No, I haven't.
So it's like essentially, I can't remember the name of it, but I think it's IBM built this big, it's IBM or Microsoft, they build this like big machine learning thing to play the game Go, which is like a massive, it's a massive game in Asia basically. And this champion who's like 8 times world champion or whatever, he's like this really cute guy. He just gets hammered by this machine learning thing because it's learning all the time off way more data points than a human can ever process. So we use that as well in the work that we do, and a lot of our campaigns have like bid strategies on them that are based off Google's machine learning. And it's like a big worry in our industry that eventually robots are going to...
Yeah, are you needed essentially?
Yeah. I mean...
Like artificial intelligence is taking over potentially.
Yeah. And Google actually say, I couldn't find this stat yesterday, but it's gone around work quite a lot. They say that in a couple of years' time, advertisers are going to be able to just put in $100,000 to Google and they'll guarantee they can make you a profit. So without any human interaction at all. So
it's funny because actually our next episode is going to be about AI and whether it's going to be affecting our lives. And mainly we hear about lower skilled labour, maybe drivers, etc. Yeah. But even people like you that have to study quite hard, have to do like and before you started your job, you had to do like an academy, didn't you, to learn about PPC. Yeah. There's a lot of learning process with it. And even your job might be...
I think people should feel less sorry for me than lower skilled labour. But yeah, I mean, like, it's something that we use to help us massively at the moment, but it can also be debated that we are going to lose some part of our role in future. But I think there's always going to be a need for humans in PPC, because if you let machine learning generate ads, I mean, like, I'm sure we've all seen hundreds of horror stories where ads were, for example, like racially insensitive, or they've just given off the wrong vibe. And I'm not sure how a robot's ever going to be able to judge that realistically. So, yeah.
I mean, it's not going to completely take over, probably. I mean, the stuff you mentioned so far sounds really positive for the consumer, more personalised to us.
Yeah.
Essentially, they know which product is going to be more relevant. You give the toothbrush example. Are there any negatives? So, people always have that worry. They always have that complaint. I'm not sure. What is the worry?
Yeah. So, I guess like a big one that I like that kind of resonates with me is like noise, amount of noise that you see from ads. So, it's kind of an interesting one. How many ads do you reckon you see per day?
God. Okay. I kind of get 20. I'm going to give it 20.
20?
Yeah, ballpark figure.
So, on average, in 2007, a study found in America, you see 5,000 ads per day.
I was far off. I was thinking like on TV, when I watch football, for example, in between, maybe 20, 25, I'd see it.
Yeah, but that's one advert.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know.
And then, like, you think you're on the tube, you're probably seeing whatever, like all the ads in front of you, every single ad. That's
Vonage is always on there.
Yeah, exactly. So 5,000 ads per day. That study was, 11 years ago? Could possibly even double that figure now. So you think about noise and you think about...
I'm just shocked at how wrong I was. I was
yeah,
so wrong.
I know, honestly, I saw this yesterday. I was like, this is incredible. So you think about that kind of thing and then you think, it's just massive overload, isn't it? Like, how is any ad really going to resonate with you? And like, you've got to think as well, like, how often do ads really resonate with you anymore? Like, maybe you'll see one a week, like one a month that you'll think that's a cool ad, or you might think, oh, actually, that's going to make me buy that product. And it's just, yeah. So that for me is like a massive downside. The average Facebook user sees an ad every 2 minutes. And again, talking about stuff that we have to think about at work. Ad fatigue is something that's massive that we think about. So capping impressions per day on display campaigns. I mean, we say now like our average is cap impressions to 3 a day, because any more than that, and the user are going to be like, I'm sick to death of seeing this whatever ad, like Now TV ad, Superdrug ad, for example.
So for Now TV, for example, you only put a maximum of 3.
That's our best practice. Yeah, I mean, it's always kind of
3 campaigns out a day for each individual.
3 ads a day per individual.
Okay.
Yeah. On search, you can't do that, but it's fine because the user's searching for it, so it's fine. But it's a massive thing for us to think about. And you will see, like, if you're running a YouTube video as an ad, you'll see click-through rate over time from the day you launch decrease until you refresh that ad. So it's something that we have to think about, and that for me is a big downside. But yeah, and I guess another one as well that I kind of thought about was just generally data and how many misnomers there are about it. So you already mentioned Cambridge Analytica, and WhatsApp's quite a good example. So there's a lot of pros to WhatsApp, especially for consumers. So, like, for example, some companies have started doing their customer service via WhatsApp now. Like, you can add them on WhatsApp
for business.
Yeah, exactly. But the downsides, I mean, it's owned by Facebook, and WhatsApp has admitted to sharing data with its parent company. And the amount of people I've spoken to that have been like, I said something to my friend on WhatsApp, and then I saw an ad about that.
Yeah.
And WhatsApp have never ever admitted to that. And I don't know if you've ever seen, like, when you start a new WhatsApp conversation, and it says these conversations are end-to-end encrypted. Like, and Zuckerberg said that in his congressional hearing, but that's not exactly true. And like, people have found that when they've downloaded all the data that's saved on their phone, then they've actually found like content of chats that they've had. So it's not encrypted at all. Like, that data is there and can somehow, I mean, I'm not an expert on this at all, but that data can be manipulated, can be manipulated, and then can eventually be sold to someone who can then use it to feed into the proxies that they have on Facebook or Instagram to eventually go on and advertise to people. So that kind of thing is really, really dangerous. Like, we're tracked way more than we ever have been before. And it's got to the point now where it's like, are we really asking for this? So one really interesting thing I saw was that the Eurosport Player app, which is like an app that really doesn't need that much data on you to be effective, it collects 810 data points about every user. So stuff like your behaviour on the app, your geolocation, where you're going every single day. Like, it doesn't need that, but it's just collecting it as a matter of course now. So look, there's definitely a lot of issues around privacy and stuff like that. I think in general, as we were talking about personalisation earlier before, in general that has to be a good thing, and it has to be better seeing stuff that's relevant to you rather than just any
garbage,
any old rubbish.
He's explaining the pros and cons from the business point of view, from the marketer point of view, not the consumer, I guess. And I mean, even for me as a consumer, it doesn't really bother me so much if I get an advert that's specific to me. I just find it very creepy. And where does it end? I think when it's only for business related, I don't really care that much.
Mhm.
I have an Amazon Echo. I'm sure it's listening to us, and then it might filter somehow like some data points, like whatever. But then when it goes that next step, you know, in China, for example, with WeChat, have you heard of the Sesame system?
Mm-hmm.
So basically, they'll give you your credit rating will depend on how much good you do. Basically, if you eat healthy foods, all that stuff adds to your credit rating. Then it kind of forces the person to change their lifestyle, and that takes away free will in a way.
It's like that Black Mirror episode when it's like they're following people around with like a score.
Oh yeah,
and, like,
yeah.
All the best things you do, like get a higher score.
Exactly. So I think people have that dystopian image, where it's not too far in the future if China is successfully doing it at the moment.
Yeah. So one thing I was going to talk about. So I know we wanted to talk about what we should expect to see in the future. Like personalization was one thing I wanted to talk about, but we've kind of spoken about that. So facial recognition is one that really, really interests me. So
that could be the next creepy part. That's the creepy thing I want to learn about.
Yeah. So like that could definitely be the next creepy part. So a couple of examples. So it was done in Piccadilly Circus en masse to judge what tone of messaging to hit people with. 100 million people go past Piccadilly Circus every month. Mm-hmm. So you think about, I mean, no one's asked for that, have they? Like we haven't asked for like our faces to be
like consented.
They're not saving any data. Well, at least they allege they're not saving any data on us. They're not recognising people. They're just judging your face. But no one's really asked for that to happen. But I do think it's quite a cool thing to allow marketers to hit people with more relevant messaging. But similarly, that's not something we've asked for. Another cool one in Sweden was for a stop smoking campaign, and it had I actually thought it was done by facial recognition, but it turned out it was just done by a smoke detector. And every time a smoker came near, this billboard coughed.
Really?
Yeah. So like it just detected when people were smoking. And I think like if we can do that properly as like marketers, then like I think that can be like really powerful messaging. And like even I know something that will probably resonate with you is like ethical marketing. And like that kind of example is something that's like massive for like that can do a lot of good basically. Yeah. But then like I guess a worry I've got is like where does this end? Like is it going to start to look at our webcams and stuff? Like, could be looking at us right now.
Yes, that's why I've actually got a blocker on my webcam. So they can't see us.
Very nice.
I mean, I was learning about this more. I think the regulations haven't really caught up with online marketing as they did with TV advertising, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, look at nicotine and tobacco. You can't really advertise it in the UK. You can't advertise it in the UK, can you?
No. And you can't advertise it online either, and there are certain regulations. So for any alcohol product or like pharmaceutical stuff, so anything that could be related to medication or anything like that, you can't do any remarketing. So we can't hit people just because we know, for example, they bought Viagra before or something like that. Even if some like funny ad copy could be potential.
Are you confident then the regulations will not allow this to go too dark? You know what we're thinking about.
I think so, and like I think GDPR is like a pretty big thing for that, because like privacy, not only just the regulations that GDPR has brought in, but privacy is a much bigger topic now than it ever used to be, and I think people are starting to fight back against that and starting to find ways that, like, there's websites right now that show you how to, well, it shows you how much Google knows about you, but also shows you how to clear all your cookies and just generally make yourself less trackable. So I think like that spread of information needs to continue, and it probably needs to continue from the government as well. But obviously then there's implications with Google, although Google don't pay as much tax as they should, but then obviously the government needs Google to bring in jobs and revenues to come to the country. So there's certain implications there, but I would kind of hope so from a just citizen point of view, to be honest, that will catch up.
Thank you. Well, Daniel, you gave us quite an optimistic view of the future, and thank you for your time.
No problem, mate.
So, Alistair, what do you think of that?
Yeah, so I mean, what Dan's painted a picture, really, I'd say, throughout that interview. The points he's made, he's shown that digital advertising is now bigger than TV advertising. And I guess one of the key points why that is because whether it's TV, you walk away and you go to work or whatever, the digital advertising aspect is always with you with your smartphone. So it becomes more and more there becomes more and more options for the marketers to sort of engage with you. And as a society, I think Dan said during the interview that phone usage had increased year by year.
It's like apparently on average we spend 258 minutes a day.
Yeah, and I think
that's what you said. Yeah.
In 2011 it was 46, was it?
Yeah,
around 46. So I mean that just shows that there's more and more opportunity. And I think you mentioned as well, you see something like 5,000 ads a day. So almost like that shows that it's becoming more and more part of our everyday lives. whether you like it or not, it is. And you sort of see that coming through in certain aspects of society now, where you see like the Fortnite football celebrations, you know.
Like,
I've never played Fortnite. I don't have a PS4, 3 or whatever, but I know what it is.
You know I've never played it either, but I know the dances.
Yeah.
I know what is going on exactly. And back to that point, sorry, you know when the 5,000 ads, when he asked me the question, obviously I said about 20, 25.
Yeah.
What would you have answered, do you think?
I wouldn't have said 5,000. I'm sceptical about that, to be honest with you. I'm the same as you actually. I would have said like, I don't know, 20, and then when he started to list, what about the tube? What about? Then it starts to all add up. And actually, I think he's spot on. I was thinking about it today. I was walking around and you see loads of them. But I think that the point he made as well is that a lot of them don't really resonate with you anymore. You know, it's oversaturation, and he's actually right. 'Cause I think 2 weeks ago on the tube, I saw an ad, and I actually actively thought to myself, I didn't have any interest in the product, but I was like, that's a cool ad. And I actually gave it sort of like kudos for the fact that it was creative. That shows like how bored I must be of ads constantly for me to just pick one out and go, oh, that's cool, about some product I don't even want.
Yeah.
So it's almost a bit of an art form, but I'd say, as more and more ads are being made, it then becomes more and more important to customise the ads, which obviously, again, Dan touched on.
Yeah, exactly. That makes a very good point. How we can personalise them as well. That's one of the things I took away from it. I took a few things. One of the things I took away from it was how personalised they can become. The information they have. So I never, even though I know how much data they have on me, I never would have guessed they could assume if I can afford a premium toothbrush or a cheaper toothbrush.
Yeah.
Like, that for me is such an exceptional amount of information they have. And this is something I also wanted to bring up.
Also the betting as well. We said about how next goal scorer they then adapt.
Yes.
So an advert says, do you think Suarez will score next? Like the question mark, it draws you in. Yes, I do.
It's
think
engaging.
It's
engaging. But like, how far do you think it will go? So 30 years ago, you say this to our grandparents, they're like, no, that's creepy, we don't want that. But now we're used to it. So I wonder what our grandchildren will think is normal, and we'll be like, oh, that's odd, but that's too much for us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that kind of raises the question for me as to where it can go in the future.
So you're sort of leaving it there on a bit of a cliffhanger, but almost like a negative one.
Well,
or maybe just an unknown.
Because things can happen so quickly as well. So Dan obviously mentioned if you walk around Piccadilly Circus, somebody's going to see they have the camera on your face. Facial recognition.
That's crazy. That is.
Things that I know that technology already exists for security reasons.
Yeah.
You see on TV, like I watched The Bodyguard on BBC, great show. They have facial recognition on their cameras, but now it's for marketing purposes. Is that a hindrance or is that a benefit? If it's more personalised to us, as Dan said, it can only be a benefit.
I think for that point in particular, Dan also said, that no one's asked for that.
Yeah.
I think he was
balanced
and
there.
I completely agree with that. That is the bit that worries you when it starts to almost be manipulative.
Yes.
So yeah.
And the manipulative part is when. So we mentioned before the interview about how manipulative it can all be, and I touched on it in the interview how WeChat in China, they have basically put something called a Sesame system, where they track what you're spending money on.
Oh, the insurance thing you mentioned.
It was kind of credit as a credit rating, credit score.
Okay, yeah.
So how much money you spend on cigarettes compared to healthy foods, etc.
Yeah.
That or is that for a ranking?
Yeah.
Now, is this a good thing or a bad thing? Because you're encouraging good spending habits, healthy food, etc. But you're also kind of punishing people for the free will. You're smoking is only harmful to me. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
So I can think it's a bit of a moral dilemma also.
Well, I think I completely agree with what you just said there, and that is scary. Obviously, China's a bit of a dictatorship, so it's a different kettle of fish. But at the same time, I think people sometimes get that feeling from Instagram. People delete it so they don't feel like they feel like it's trapping them a little bit, and they're becoming a bit obsessive over it. And obviously, there's loads of people who flaunt the. Kim Kardashian is a really obvious example. There's loads of people who are getting paid X number of millions a post or £250,000 a post because they're going to put a product in it.
Yes.
And that's, I think, when that sort of warps reality, when people buy into that, I think that's where it can get a little bit, for some people, a bit dangerous. I personally have Instagram and I don't really buy into that, and I actually really enjoy it. It's good for finding recipes and stuff. Or
you're into music, so that's quite good for that. Yeah.
It's good. It did for stuff like that. But I guess it's really down to the individual. But I guess when the individual doesn't have a say in the matter, i.e. the Piccadilly Circus thing, that's when there's almost like there's a big brother watching you.
Yes, exactly. I mean, did you take anything else away from the interview?
No, I think that's all really. I think it was really interesting to hear it from a professional point of view, because obviously it shows balance. It shows balance in also as well the number of posts they do a day, where they don't want to start making people bored of stuff. Have a cap on it, and the whole idea of his own clients, Dan's own clients, saying about we don't want it to come across creepy.
So they're aware of it as well.
Yeah, it shows due diligence.
Yeah.
Whether as again Dan made a point to do with robotic or automation within marketing, where you
give Google $100,000 and they'll guarantee you a profit.
He queries that because he thinks that maybe they might not have a human sort of emotional side where they can judge the appropriateness of a particular advert or stuff. So that's again is quite an interesting point, I think.
Yeah, perfect. And I'm glad you left it on that note, because I wanted to mention about how AI and how if it's going to take over. He said potentially even my job, where I have to work quite hard to get, study quite hard to get, a robot can do it in the near future.
To an extent.
To an extent. It might, exactly, to an extent.
Yeah.
And so that kind of leads us nicely to finish it off and give you a taster of what we're going to talk about in the next episode.
Yes.
We'll talk about AI, how it's going to change the future. And yeah, Alice, I think we leave it on that.
Yeah.
Hopefully our first episode with the interviewer or interviewee went quite well.
I think from both perspectives, the interviewer, I think you did a good job.
Thank you. I was fishing.
At one point you asked, can you name the company? You pushed him a little bit. He backed you away, but yeah, as well, thanks for Dan coming on. That was really insightful. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much for listening, guys.